What's up, everybody? Thinker St. James here, fresh back from vacation, and the news I return to is that Ahmad Hassanzada, Dana White's Contender Series contract winner, has been arrested for sexual violence against a minor. Yikes. These are, of course, very serious accusations, perhaps even more so than some of the other cases that we've covered on this channel, and I'll explain why in just a bit. Ahmad Hassanzada is a 12-3 fighter fighting out of Team Alpha Male in Sacramento, California. Kind of concerning in and of itself that Team Alpha Male has any allegations like these even associated with it in the first place, considering how big of a gym it is in this sport. But here we are. You might remember Ahmad Hassanzada from his fight on the Contender Series. This was his second go-around on the Contender Series. Lost his first fight, came back and fought Dylan Mantello. This was a somewhat sloppy affair between two guys who I would class as mid-level talents. Definitely tough guys, but it was not a very technical fight. Hassanzada ended up getting a rear naked choke in the third round after getting dropped by Mantello somewhere along the way in the fight. So it was a back and forth, but Hassanzada ultimately won the fight. Well, he was going to make his debut this weekend in Kansas City, but just days before he was set to do that, he was arrested for this very serious crime. According to AG Fight, 28-year-old Ahmad Hassanzada was arrested last Friday in Sacramento and is facing serious allegations of alleged sexual violence against a minor. The outlet reported that the Afghan fighter is accused of committing an obscene act against a victim under the age of 14, a charge made even more severe by the age gap of more than 10 years. Initially denied bail, the case was later updated to allow for a $400,000 bond. He is currently being held in Sacramento County Main Jail. When it comes to this charge of sexual violence as opposed to sexual assault, the difference there is, at least according to Google, sexual violence is a term we use to describe any sexual activity which happened without consent. So this is a much more serious allegation potentially than some of the other people we've covered on this channel, because this involves actual rape. This is forcible sexual activity without consent, and it involves a minor under the age of 14. Pretty heinous stuff over here. I think that it's important to acknowledge here that because of the nature of this crime, it could have happened in any number of different ways. Did it happen at the gym? Did it happen in his personal life somewhere? Was it someone that he knew? Was it someone that was acquainted with him through an outside organization that wasn't the gym? Was it a random act? We don't know those details, so all of the speculation on this is purely that. It's only speculation until more concrete details come out. Hassanzada, who earned a UFC contract with a submission win on Dana White's Contender Series, was 1-1 on the show and scheduled to make his UFC debut on April 26th in Kansas City. That bout is now off the table and his future in the sport is in serious jeopardy. Yeah, that's a fucking understatement. The UFC has yet to issue an official statement, and neither the fighter nor his team at Alpha Male have responded publicly. They do have down here that, according to Kevin on X, he's been released from the UFC. Of course, that being Crazy Kev, which we know is not a reputable source in the slightest. But I think it's a pretty foregone conclusion that this guy is not going to be in the UFC with a charge like this. Now, if everything turns out to be a big misunderstanding, then perhaps they'll bring him back. But with a charge like this, it's a little bit hard to believe that it came from out of nowhere and it's all just a comedy of errors, so to speak. I mean, that's the basic crux of everything right now. There's really not too much more detail to go over as far as the actual charges go. But I did a little bit of digging on Hassanzada's social media here, and he's already starting to get it in the comments section. Of course, this is an image for his original opponent for Kansas City. It was supposed to be Mitch Ramirez. He got removed from that fight for whatever reason, and Hassanzada was supposed to fight Evan Elder. Elder has been rebooked with a new opponent who's also from the Contender Series, while Hassanzada sits and awaits his fate. Going through some of these comments, This one says you got a new fight booked, buddy. Sell B43 in a catchweight bout against Cain Velasquez. Yikes. This person here just had a bunch of crying emojis, and the conversation was interesting in this one to me. The person up here was saying, oh, you shouldn't be sad over this guy getting arrested. You should be happy that he is off the streets based on the allegations. Of course, I agree with that aspect of it. And this person down here, I think, had a pretty cogent response. Said, I don't think he's sad he got arrested. I think he's sad that someone who represents their country or that part of the world has done something like this. Now, that's the other big part of this story and what gets into a little bit of dicey socio-political territory, because Hassanzada is from Afghanistan. On the Contender series, he did not fly the Afghanistani flag, at least not on the graphics. The organization, I guess, has some kind of block on Afghanistan for probable political reasons, I would assume. But for whatever reason, they didn't show the Afghanistani flag, but Hassanzada had, in his fighter meeting, talked about all of the adversity that he faced to get to the United States from Afghanistan. Obviously a harrowing tale, and he was proudly representing Afghanistan in the sport. So the response here kind of touches on that this guy was potentially going to be a representative and someone to be looked up to from Afghanistan, a country that you take your pick in the last 100 years has gone through so much turmoil and needs a little bit of representation in a positive light on the world stage. This could have been him. Unfortunately, due to his own potentially disgusting actions, that is not going to be the case. A couple other ones say things like that as well. This one here says, I hope it's just an accusation, but if it's true, I hope they bury you under the prison. It's like our country doesn't have enough problems to deal with. Now our UFC athletes are going around doing shit like this. Yeah, well, that's a broader issue, which is why I made the first grooming video and talking about this in the first place. The fact that the MMA world is a world where there are young people by nature involved in it, because the sport has such a short window of competition. People start very young. The access that potential predators have to children is so much greater. Now, I don't know the circumstances with Hassanzada, but it's just something that is around the sport to begin with, as a thing that needs to be recognized and looked at vigilantly because of the direct pipeline that predators have to children and the dynamic that is created. In fact, in a lot of ways, MMA is a really good breeding ground for predators because of that. They have not only closeness with young people, but they also have the element of authority, be it a coach or another person at the gym, and a fighter, whatever. I mean, these are all people that a young fighter, an impressionable person, is going to look up to and show a lot of respect for, easily manipulated perhaps. But if you go through the comments from before the allegations were made, you see that a lot of them are in Arabic, and a lot of them are in support of Hassanzada, being that he is from Afghanistan. So as a representative of the country, you've done your entire country a very grave disservice, sir, if these allegations are true, let alone the disgusting things that you potentially did to this minor. It's too hard to go into speculation about things because we don't have those details. But either which way, a very heinous crime has potentially been committed, and this dude is now missing his UFC debut because of it, and ostensibly will never fight again. I mean, they're talking about in the article that his career is in jeopardy. I mean, the only way that his career is a career anymore is if he is found fully innocent of all of these charges, 100%. On his Instagram here, he has this little link tree. And if you go to it, he's got all of his socials laid out here. On here, I don't know why it's not loading, but it has like pictures and stuff. he had representation. Like, this dude is a guy who was trying to tout himself as someone who could potentially be the future lightweight champion of the world over here. You know, he's with Team Alpha Male. He's with UWC Wrestling. He's got United Fight Agency as his representation, putting this all together. This is a person who was fancying himself as someone who could be the next level of the sport. So it's kind of crazy to think that if these allegations are true, that this person thought that he could fucking get away with something like that. That you could have a guy like the brazenness of these disgusting people who do these kind of crimes is pretty insane to me. Some of them, I guess there's a level of celebrity, which I think is changing and evolving now. Because I think about people like the singer from Lost Prophets, who was a disgusting, hideous. I mean, he's one of the worst abusers I can think of, if you know the details of that case. Look them up on your own time, but go into it knowing that it's stomach turning. But that's a person who could hide behind celebrity because of how big his band was, how popular they were. He ended up basically outing himself with the amount of brazenness he had. I mean, this is a guy who thinks he's going to be the next champion of the world, and here on Facebook pulled this up to say that he has himself listed as married. I don't know if his wife is back in Afghanistan or if she came over with him or whatever. This is a married man preying on a juvenile under the age of 14. And again, this is not a quote-unquote consensual interaction in the sense of, oh, this minor was coming on to him and he just didn't, as the responsible adult, say no. Even that would, of course, not be consent, but you know what I'm saying, where it's like puppy love from a child, and he took advantage of that. This is not that. A sexual violence charge is rape, full-on rape. So this is the last thing that I had for it, was just to bring up the actual document. They have a screenshot here for the police report, just to outline how egregious this is. You see it down here under type of arrest: lewd and lascivious act with a child under the age of 14, lewd act on child victim 14 or under with 10 years older for the defendant, basically, is what's going on there. So yeah, pretty bad stuff. In fact, amongst the worst stuff that you can possibly imagine. I feel terrible for this victim if these allegations are in fact true. Potentially they might not be. Who knows? We have to find out all of the details first before we go on fully making a judgment call one way or another. We do live in a culture where abuse allegations are en masse more prevalent nowadays. So it's not out of the question that a child could make something like that up, hearing it on the news, hearing it from general discourse around them, potentially. But, it's just too hard to say right now one way or another, and I don't want to speak out of turn about something this egregious. I would suspect that he is going to potentially be in prison for a very long time, if not deported back to Afghanistan, which in and of itself is probably not a great sentence to live out. So again, hard to go on without all of the information, but this is the information we have right now. Disgusting allegations here against Ahmad Hassanzada. Hopefully justice is served. For Yelling About Mixed Martial Arts, this is Thinker St. James. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.